It's been a while, but here's what the Moria board is looking like. In the last video, we made molds of the columns and then cast those in dental plaster. And since then, we went ahead and attached those pieces together. One challenge I faced was the grid, as the orientation of the pillars I wanted, shown by the gray squares, would need an objective on that green dot. So here's what I did. So I've read the terrain section of this book about 100 times, trying to figure out how to make climbable terrain that you can actually interact with. This right here is part of that. Now, as the central piece on the board, there's a central objective here. Now, if I kept it as is, that would be a huge pain in the ass. Because any terrain, any object, I think is how it's defined, that is over half the height of the model needs a climb check. On a 6, you can keep moving as normal. On a 1, you stand still. Everything else, you do that and it ends. If we keep it as is, you'd be here, you'd move up, you'd roll the dice, you'd climb, end of your turn. You'd move here, you'd roll the dice, you'd climb, end of your turn. That's not fun. We gotta find a way to speed that up. If you are climbing a vertical distance and you have something to assist you, like a ladder, then you just count the distance. You don't have to make those checks. So if I was here, it'd be 1 inch up, 2 inches across, 1 inch up, an inch across. But hold on, why not just make one longer ladder if you're going to go in that direction? What does the step do? Good question. A model can't actually charge another model on an elevated platform if that elevation is taller than the charging model. So the step allows for models defending the objective to be charged. There are technically rules for charging up ladders, but those are in the siege section of the book, and I'm not trying to slow everybody's games down. This way is a lot faster, and it keeps the game moving. Originally, I wanted it to be a bunch of climb tests, but I just think for the central objective, everyone needs to be able to interact with it easily, and that's going to be our best bet. So I'm going to build some ladders along here. The sides, maybe I'll do those too, I'm not sure. I'll figure that out. But because I'm making this easy to scale, that means I'm going to have to make some other stuff that is less easy to scale. Because you have to have some advantage in Moria for playing goblins, right? Let's make some jungle gems. Man, this platform I made completely back-assward. I'm going to skip over all the details. It's a tutorial we've all seen before. Balsa wood, steel brush, wood glue. I didn't have a brain cell or any sort of organization. Despite all that, I was very pleased with the shape. After building it up, I used some painter's tape to mark out fabrics, and then strengthened those with wood glue, and coated a couple of them in caulk to sculpt some pelts. This was done both to vary up the textures, but also to block line of sight through the structure. No free shots, Lego ass. Now, this next portion took forever. Forever. I purchased this battle mat, as I felt it was the closest match to Moria I could find. Then, I used my pencil pushpin shank to sculpt a matching texture into the central platform and all of the fallen pillars. Should I have just used a texture roller, perhaps one that I own, and saved multiple hours? Yes. But alas, here we are. For Moria, I have to paint everything. So I have some Oops paint. If you've never seen Oops paint before, when you go to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, they have to mix paint for people, and sometimes they fuck it up. So this is Oops paint. It was $10 instead of whatever it usually is, but it's, damn, a lot of paint. This house paint's thick. For most stuff, probably wouldn't use it, but for terrain, especially terrain with some layer lines, it's going to be really good. So we're going to go ahead and put that over all of the plaster, as well as the bases that you saw me make earlier. So let's do that.
The painting process was very trial and error. I started with that black house paint as a base and then used a navy blue, thinking maybe it would get me close to that blue tint on the battle map. That was not the case.
So that navy blue, way too blue. I'm now going over the top of that with a not so full coat of gray, like a darker gray. That way we still have that blue coming through the bottom, and that should give us the look we're going for. Should. We'll see.
So at this point, I'm feeling a little discouraged. The wooden structure took much longer than I thought it would. The bases took much longer than I thought they would. And now, even after the gray paint, I'm just not feeling how the columns look. On top of that, in my darkest hour, the TO sent me this. But it is in these moments we must remember the wise words of the greatest among us. No. Thanks, homie. I needed that. Alright, so this is what we're working with. We have our 8 standing pillars, 3 broken pillars, centerpiece, jungle gym, 3D printed camp, and a picture frame that will eventually become something, maybe. First off, it is far too clean. True, the movie scene is pretty sparse, but that's uninteresting for wargaming. I think the easiest way to fix that is just adding bases to both the jungle gym and the camp. In fact, pretty much everything we add is going to end up getting a base. I'm used to making terrain for boards, where a lot of the texture is in the ground itself. It's very different from a battle mat, which is completely flat, so I think I need to work a little harder. We could make up for it with a couple of rubble piles, some rocks glued together, then glued together, and once again glued together. Will do the trick. A couple of 3D printed crates and supplies goes a long way as well for that smaller scattered terrain. It also helps to give a sense of scale, which is important with the pillars being so big. Alright, what else is Moria known for? I'd say probably its monsters. Cave drakes were featured in the last edition army list and had a special rule for their eggs that I thought was pretty cool. Maybe that campsite we worked on earlier could be some egg snatchers trying to get rich. So let's build a nest. Of course, there isn't much in a cave system to build a nest out of, so I'm going to assume cave drakes have evolved to make their nests out of rocks. I think they do just fine snug between these ore containers. It would be cool to represent the Watcher in the water as well. Something subtle though, like a bottomless water feature. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Plus, it gives me an excuse to use my Black 3.0. Also, to do a resin pour, which is something that I've never done in the hobby, and I really have wanted to. And after a couple more hours of sculpting and painting, we were finally ready for some games.
Hello. Hopefully I'm in focus. This board was made for the Battle for Bridgetown that was hosted at Gongai Games in Beaverton, Oregon. This happened a while ago. Videos take a long time to edit, and I'm very slow. I started this board and a second board, which we will have a video on, about 2 weeks before the event started. Why? I don't know. I figured I could do it, and it would be a fun challenge. And I think the Moria board was very challenging. It was challenging because it was my first time using a battle mat as opposed to building the board itself. I wanted to take advantage and push the boundaries of the rules and allow gameplay that doesn't typically happen on boards, and then the painting, trying to make it all look cohesive. I think I achieved what I set out to achieve with this board, and I think at the tournament it performed very well. Unfortunately, between my own games and other people's games, I wasn't able to get a whole lot of footage of this board at the tournament, but I do have some footage that we'll see in just a second. I do want to revisit this board in the future. I think it's really cool. I think the concept of it is really fun. It's currently a 4x4. I want to extend it out to a 4x6. When I do that, I will be revisiting the paint scheme. I will be cleaning some things up that I've noticed afterward. But overall, I think the execution was good. Board's cool. It's different than anything else I've played on, and I'm really excited to show you. So instead of continuing to stall, let's check it out.
Looking at the jungle gym, there are very few shots one could take through the platform. The top, however, is free game. Going back to the side here, we have an opportunity for the Cave Dweller special rule to really shine. As you can see on the platform here, the battle lines can clash around the objective, leaving room for spear supports or even models with larger bases. Stuff too many guys on there though, and you'll end up trapped or falling off the platform. Besides the central platform, this fallen pillar is pretty significant on the board. Being only 2 inches high, both it, the platform, and the jungle gym can all be crossed over by war beasts without penalty. So if Mumax are your thing, you're evil, but this board still works. One benefit to the pillar being on your half is the ability to deploy archers on top of it. To combat this, I added this little step here facing the opposite edge that should allow your opponent to charge up. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.